twice this week and giving fans something to be proud of.
Wolverhampton Wanderers, hopefully this time they can do the business.
Hello, Wolves fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of the E&S Wolves podcast, brought to you by the Express and Star and in association with University of Wolverhampton at the Halls. My name is Jonny Drury. As always, I'm here with Mr. Liam Keen for another podcast after what was a pretty hectic Liverpool-dominated week, a famous victory and unfortunately an exit in the FA Cup as Wolves now face, after the next game, a month-long break. We're going to talk about it all, talk about last week, preview preview stuff that's not really happening in the next few weeks, and talk about everything in between. But Keno, how are you, mate? A week of highs and maybe a little bit of a low on Friday last week.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's been a bit of a mad time, hasn't it? I mean, the fixture list and the schedules has been pretty intense. Last week was just all over the place, press conferences, games, and, just Friday nights, and it was all over the place. It feels like it was about 3 years ago, not last week. It's all sort of, my mind's all muddled. And then, I mean, I'll mention it briefly now, but we'll come to it when we talk about Brentford. I am away next week. I'm going skiing. So I'm very much in, which is a great way to start a podcast this week, very much in holiday mode. I mean, which I probably shouldn't let my bosses know, but I'm just so excited to get through to.
Yeah, hopefully they don't listen to this
flights.
podcast. Hopefully the powers that be at E&S Towers don't listen that you're on holiday mode already.
Well, I mean, I know they have started listening as well, so they'll hear this, but it's all right. They know they can trust me to get the job done. So yeah, I'm sort of very much in looking forward to that. But luckily, because obviously, as I always do, I was out the weekend again. Shock. Didn't feel great on Sunday, but obviously, even at my age, I'm okay by Wednesday morning. But I'm surprised that you're doing all right, mate. After last night, little Cheltenham trip, was it?
It was a little Cheltenham trip yesterday, mate, and I am, as much as I might look all right, the hair's a bit long and dishevelled. I'm feeling a little bit rough this morning, but it's because I was celebrating a very good winner yesterday at Cheltenham. So yeah, feeling a little bit ropey. So I need a bit of Wolves chat to make me feel a little bit better today. But the best thing was about it, you go to Cheltenham. I don't know if you've been before, Keno, but as a part-time race goer who knows nothing really about what I'm reading in form and figures and all these kind of numbers that come with horse racing, you kind of have a look. You're trying to pretend that you know what you're doing. I back that. It won the last race at Newbury or wherever. You don't win any money. And then you look down on the fourth race in, there's a horse called Johnny Who. I'll just go with the name. Just stick a tenner on the name. And then what happens? That horse wins.
So was that the one that came in?
It's absolutely down to pure luck than anything else either. So yeah, for all these so-called experts who give you all these tips, just pick the name, just pick the number.
Yeah, I haven't got a clue, man. I mean, I've been to the races a couple of times, but I've never done Cheltenham. I mean, Cheltenham's not far from me. Obviously, I'm living in Warwick, so I would like to do one year. But yeah, I'd be the exact same as you. I mean, I'm more interested in the bar to start with, and then it's it's whatever names, And I'm pretty frugal, so I'm not putting a lot of money on either. I mean, we're talking fivers probably. Whichever name looks good at a decent rate, so that I'm getting a decent return, a decent odds. I think you 18 to 1 was yours. You said
18 to 1. It was. Yeah,
that's a decent pick, mate.
Right.
I wouldn't go anything below sort of 18, 15 maybe, because I'm just desperate to win a bit of money.
Yeah,
it shows
that
on a horse.
Yeah, it shows that I've had two winners, decent winners at Cheltenham. The only one I had was about 5 years ago. And you look across the betting odds, the Wolves fans who are racing fans will know this. You kind of look across and you go, he's offering 8 to 1. He's offering 9 to 1. And I went one year, I'd had a few beers. So one was offering 8, one was offering 9. The next one next to him, I thought was offering 16 to 1. So I put £10 on it. It was the wrong horse. So I bet on the wrong horse. And what happened? It won. So they're the two decent wins I've ever had. And there's been no thought behind them whatsoever other than a wrong bet and a name. So that would be my tip for anyone this week. Watching Cheltenham on the telly, or if they're going, just stick with the name, or just random luck of the draw. Close your eyes and point.
Might have a little Gold Cup punt on Friday, maybe. See how I get on.
Yeah. So a little bit ropey today, but we'll get through the poddy because there's much to talk about. We'll go in reverse order, and we'll start with the unfortunate defeat on Friday night against Liverpool, Rob Edwards' men were hoping to recreate those scenes at the death on Tuesday evening at Molineux, but wasn't to be. Keno, Liverpool maybe learnt their lesson a little bit. Wolves were always in the game, but it was just maybe a little step too far after kind of the busy run that they've been on and the incredible results that they've picked up.
Yeah, I think I predicted in the last podcast, I think was it draw in the league and then a win in the FA Cup, because maybe more hope than judgment. I was desperate for Wolves to get through in the FA Cup. Don't get me wrong, obviously we're going to talk about the league win, and the league win was fantastic for a lot of reasons, but I was really desperate for them to get through in that cup. I think the opportunity to get through to a quarter final in the FA Cup again, we spoke about obviously the Coventry quarter final from a couple of years ago, and how often Wolves have been there and how you might not come around for a while, and you get a chance to dream and get to Wembley. Although Liverpool have drawn Man City away, haven't they? So maybe
silver lining and all that.
Yeah, so maybe it wouldn't have gone too well, but which of course is typical. Although saying that, I was quite pleased with the draw. Actually, obviously I want Wolves to be in it first of all, but I was quite pleased that a couple of the other clubs that aren't the so-called Big Six have got an opportunity to get themselves to Wembley, and Port Vale are at home as well. So fair play to them. It'd be fantastic if they got through, wouldn't it? But yeah, look, it was a weird first half because, without a doubt, and I agree with Rob Edwards on this, and he said this after the game, Liverpool were better than they were in the league game. So without a doubt, I agree with that. I thought they were a lot more intense, a lot more aggressive. They pressed really well. What Wolves did positively, I felt, was limited their chances in that first half. Liverpool didn't really have a lot of opportunities. Wolves were really good, sort of compact, defensively, really organised. I felt sort of dealt with the danger pretty well for all of Liverpool's possession, all of Liverpool's sort of dominance in that first half. What Wolves didn't do, which they did do in the first game in the Premier League fixture, is they weren't really able to offer any threat at all. Now, every time they got out into midfield, they were being pressed really well, obviously, by Liverpool, but also they were struggling just to thread those passes. Matheus Mane, a player that obviously has been fantastic and has had loads of really good games, had a couple of sort of quieter ones at times. Nothing particularly bad, I don't feel. I think there's a little bit of a narrative around him that maybe isn't quite fair, I would say. But I did think he had a poor game in this cup fixture, and he wasn't the only one, but I think he was one of the biggest culprits of this, holding onto the ball far too long in midfield and giving it away so easily. And that just meant that Wolves weren't really able to string those passes together through the thirds and create those opportunities. They got through Liverpool, and by got through, I mean they got the other side of that midfield and in the first game, and they couldn't do that in this second game, and that just meant they created nothing. And I mean, let's be honest, Tolu up top did not cover himself in any glory as well in that game. So it was frustrating. I mean, really, the only attack they really offered was pretty much right at the end of the game when Hwang goes and gets a little bit of a consolation. I'm pleased for him as an individual because that will do him the world of good. And it was obviously just a punt from Johnston straight down the middle, and it was. I mean, Hwang took it really well, but it wasn't exactly a beautifully creative goal, was it? And the story of the game, really, aside from Wolves not being able to create anything, is they threw it away really in a very short space in that second half. I think, just a little bit lackluster defending. Jackson Tatchell not quite switched on a couple of occasions. Totti let Salah go at the back post for that second one. I mean, I know Robertson's first is a fantastic finish as well, and that's obviously unfortunate from Wolves' perspective, but Liverpool sort of created those chances and were given license to create them, I felt, in that spell at the second half. And Wolves actually had started for 5 minutes a bit better in that second half, started a little bit more on the front foot, had an early chance at 0-0 and then go and concede 2 in the space of 4 minutes. And obviously they go and get a third eventually. But really the story of that game is you didn't create enough and you lost it in 4 second half minutes. And that's disappointing because I thought it was a real opportunity to get through.
Yeah, it was. I think the difference that I could see between the two games, I was with you at Molineux in midweek and I wasn't there on Friday, but that kind of, certainly the second half in the league game, it was a bit of a basketball game, to be fair, because it was quite open. Wolves were given a lot of space to kind of counter, and they took advantage of it on more than one occasion. I think Liverpool kind of wised up to that. They were tighter, they were more effective, and pound for pound, they obviously are a better side. They're at the top of the table, and they kind of showed that when they squeezed Wolves. The Wolves kind of didn't maybe have the answers. But I think as much as Wolves failed to create anything, I thought Liverpool were decent value, and they obviously deserved to go through. They probably stepped it up 1 or 2 gears from midweek, because they were off it in midweek. There's no question about that. Wolves did play well in the league, and we'll come on to that and it being a highlight of the season. But they probably just went up a gear or two. That if they'd have gone up a gear or two on Tuesday night, they probably would have won the league game as well. But they didn't. But I think on Friday, you probably say from Liverpool, it was a kind of professional display, really, in keeping Wolves at arm's length from it.
I completely agree. I think one of the key words you've used there is sort of squeezed, and that's a way I would describe it as well. I think Liverpool just had so much control over the game and really tightened it up, and they won the ball. Obviously, it helped with individuals from Wolves' perspective not really looking after the ball very well, and Bellegar was another one. They really missed Andre in midfield.
I think that was similar to Tuesday night, though, Kenny, because if you look at Liverpool's goal in the league game, we'll kind of amalgamate the 2 points into one. That was a mistake, Bellegar giving the ball away. But there was 3 or 4 times in the league game, where Wolves did exactly the same, and they were really poor in possession, and Liverpool didn't take advantage. That was the only time they did take advantage. Whereas, you're doing it on Friday, where Liverpool have got probably a bit more fire in their belly, bit of a, not point to prove, but they don't want to get beaten again, same place in kind of 4 days. And they took advantage of any mistakes like that. Whereas on Tuesday night, Wolves got away with a few, to be honest. As well as they played, they got away with a few kind of stray balls and poor passes in possession.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Without a doubt, it was Liverpool being off it a little bit in that Premier League win. Equally, Wolves obviously played well, as you've already said. But I totally agree. I sort of to that earlier point, I think it was just that Liverpool was so aggressive, so sort of compact, really tightened the game for Wolves. And it meant that if Wolves were going to get out, it needed a real moment of individual brilliance from someone like a Bellegar or Mane, or even a threaded pass through from João Gomez, who obviously had done that in that first game as well. And Wolves didn't really have that. João Gomez actually, I thought, did okay in the in that second game. He was one of Wolves' better players, considering that they sort of lost the midfield battle, whereas in that first game, I thought they really won the midfield battle. And as I was going to say a second ago, they really, really missed Andre, didn't they? I mean, Andre was superb in that first game. Obviously, it's the winning goal, which we'll come on to as well. But not having him in that FA Cup game, I think, really took a lot of Wolves' control away. And I think it's a fair point that some of my colleagues at the game were making. I was chatting to them afterwards. It's not only the fact that you miss Andre, but you also expect João Gomez then to do a slightly different role than where he's probably best. He has played in that sort of 6 role before, and he's done it okay at times. I think he's a very capable footballer. Obviously, I was critical of him a few weeks ago when he was playing badly, but to his credit, he's actually responded really well since then in the last few games. But what he's much better suited to, in my opinion, is playing alongside a 6, and he just gets a little bit more of a license. He's more of an 8, in my opinion. Not as attacking, obviously, as Bellegar and Mane, although he just like to get up there and obviously has scored fairly recently as well. But you get a bit more out of him, I think, when he's box to box. When he's a bit more square and the game is sort of in front of him, you don't get the best out of João Gomez, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that played impact as well. And a point I wanted to make actually is I think Wolves looked really tired in that second half. They looked really leggy. I did ask Rob Edwards about that after the game, and he sort of didn't really agree with the point. And I mean, that's up to him. Spoke to Dave Edwards for the column we do with the Express and Star earlier in the week, and he agreed and said that Wolves looked really tired and leggy in his opinion. And to be honest, I can't really blame them. Look, that's not sit here and be feeling sorry for them. They're professional footballers. You get paid a hell of a lot of money to run around on
the run they've been on as well. And you look at the opponents they've kind of played. They played Liverpool,
That's
go back,
Liverpool,
Liverpool in the league, Villa and Arsenal prior to that, and certainly in the home games. In their games where you haven't got an awful lot of the ball, you are being the chasers. You can forgive them for kind of, like we said at the top of the podcast, running out of steam. I know people don't like that excuse in terms of tiredness and stuff, but with Wolves' squad, it's largely been the same 11 for those 4 games. And you are against opposition that pull you around the pitch. You know, and
Yeah, I mean,
it's gonna take its
even
toll at the end, isn't it?
yeah, and even Palace away. I mean, Palace, you played the second half mostly with 10 men as well, so that's going to have an impact. And also, Palace are a kind of sort of rough and tumble team at times where they are going to give you a bit of a physical battle. So all of those games that you mentioned, of course, it's going to take it out of you. So I think you made a really good point. I'm still going to come back to saying that I don't think we should feel too sorry for them. You know, they get paid a hell of a lot of money to do this. It's not exactly, you know, working 20 hours in a factory. They're
not doing a shift as Liam Keane at the Express and Star on.
Well,
I
wouldn't go that far. I don't think I'm quite as hard working as some people out there. As much as I do put the effort in, but no, look, they're in a very, very privileged position. Let's put it that way. So I don't want to sound like I mean, getting the tiny violins out for them or anything like that. But let's look at it contextually. And you make a good point. I think the type of opposition and the type of games they've had is a really important point. Secondly, the amount of games they've had has been pretty brutal, actually, because obviously the Arsenal game got brought forward. So that was another midweek game in February. In the space of 4 weeks, from 7th of Feb, when they played Chelsea at Molineux, to the 6th of March, when obviously we just had the second Liverpool game. In that spell, in that 4 weeks, they had eight fixtures. 2 of them in midweek, 2 of them on a Friday night. That's separate of the 2 in midweek, by the way. That's a separate 2. The 2 sort of midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday games, and then 2 Friday nights. I mean, that's a lot of fixtures. What it does as well is it sort of interrupts a little bit of the week going into that as well. It's a lot more recovery based, a lot more sort of meetings, a lot more going through tactics, as I say, in the sort of auditorium rather than on a training pitch. Obviously, they do some training as well, and that's all sort of mixed into it. But it becomes a lot different, a much different week when you have these amount of games, particularly when you've got 3 in a week: Villa, Liverpool in the space of 7 days. So, yeah, it was I do think that had a part to play. I do think it took its toll, and for me, Wolves did look very leggy in that second half. I know they scored right at the end with Hwang, but again, it was a sort of specialist moment, if you will, where it's a long punt from Johnson. Hwang's not long come on, so he's fresh. So I don't think you can use that point to negate the point about them looking a bit tired. And for me, I do think this time has taken its toll. That's why, as you mentioned at the top of the podcast, the spell they've got now, they've had 10 days, or they will have 10 days by the time they get to Brentford, a bit of a rest there on Monday night. Then after that, they've got just under 4 weeks between Brentford away and West Ham away. So, and obviously there'll be some players that go away in internationals in the middle of that as well. But by and large, after this second Liverpool game, they've got quite a long spell now where they can sort of get a bit more rest into them, get a bit more sort of energy in their legs and try and attack the back end of the season with real vigour.
Yeah, just before we just talk about the kind of the night against Liverpool and what it kind of means, and where the Wolves are still in this fight for survival somehow. Talk to me about Hwang, because he's someone who's kind of copped a bit of flack, hasn't he, from Wolves fans for quite a while. He's been out injured. He's come on, took his goal really well. What does that do for him between now and the end of the season? And kind of, we talk about the future of players every week because, we know, we're almost 100% sure we know where they're going to be next season in terms of what division they're going to be in. But, where do you see the future of someone like Hwang, who has done it in the Premier League? He's not maybe on the standing of, your big boys like your Andre and João Gomez and people that we know will go, but then is not a cert in terms of other players that might remain in the Championship. Where do you see the future lying for him, Keno? Because he has been linked with moves away in the past, hasn't he?
I've only just noticed when I looked at the screen. Oh, it's just changed now. It was almost angelic, wasn't it? This sort of bright lights coming behind me. It was the sun was blaring through the front window. I didn't even realise. Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, the first thing to say is he's a player that I would expect to go. I would expect him to leave the football club. I'd be surprised if he sticks around. I think for everyone's sake, really, because as you mentioned, fans don't really like him, don't really rate him. He gets sort of criticised and booed quite a lot, even without necessarily having done anything, even before he's even gone on the pitch or even when he's just come off or whatever it is. So I think for everyone's sake, it probably makes sense that he moves on. I mean, in hindsight, should Wolves have taken 20-odd million from Marseille? What was it, a couple of summers ago? Absolutely, they should have done. Understandable at the time when they didn't, because he was off the back of a decent goal scoring campaign. But obviously in hindsight, they should have taken that money. I think the official bid was 21 million, but I believe Marseille had come back in. I'm not sure if this was public or not, but they came back in and we're edging closer to 25. And I think Jeff Shee at the time was asking for north of 30 million. So that was that never really got off the ground. Obviously, Gary Neal at the time never wanted him to go, so that never got off the ground. Obviously, hindsight's always 2020, so I can't necessarily criticize the club massively for that, because I probably felt he shouldn't have got at that time as well. So, but that's just the reality. That's sort of hindsight. He's had interest from a few clubs before, a few Premier League clubs before. PSV has been mentioned for this summer, and they looked at him previously as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if they come back in. And I just don't think he'll be a player that would want to go down to Championship. I think he'll probably go to somewhere in Europe, if I'm honest. Whether a club has got enough money to buy him, I don't know, but I'm not sure you'd get loads for him now these days anyway. So you probably would be able to sell him, provided Wolves were willing to compromise a little bit. So I would suggest he probably isn't here, I imagine. But I do think it's a good question, because I think he has something to offer as a footballer, but he probably is going to go offer it somewhere else now.
He's one of those in-between players, isn't he, in the squad at the moment?
Yeah, he's sort of come to a bit of a natural end of his Wolves career, I think. And I think he'd score goals in the Championship, I really do, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. He's been here a fair while now as well. He came, 21 originally? He came on loan, so he's been here quite a while now, and I just can't see it happening. I think his time probably is up for all parties.
Well, that win last week in the league against Liverpool, I think on Tuesday night, it put Wolves 11 points adrift. They are 12 as it stands now, with 8 games remaining. A lot of Wolves fans are saying they couldn't, could they? What if? Ifs and buts. It would take an awful lot. But, Keenan, what do they have left to play for in these final 8 games now? Because I'm sure a lot of people predicted they probably would be down by now. They're not. And from my perspective, if you look at the fixture list, Wolves have got Brentford. The next 4, they've got Brentford, West Ham, Leeds, and then Spurs at Molineux, which could be a massive game for certainly for Spurs. I look at it now and you think, if Wolves go and get a couple of wins in the next kind of 2 or 3 games, and the sides above them, record back-to-back defeats, or get 1 point from a possible 6, there's going to be a few clubs looking over their shoulder. I think Wolves could. Wolves, it's unlikely they're going to survive, but I think they're going to put the squeeze, and they're going to put a bit of a scare up some of these clubs above them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you beat Villa. That's a great start. Obviously, I mean, the previous home game before that, obviously, come back to get a point against Arsenal as well. But that's why losing to Palace in between is really frustrating, isn't it, as well? Because there's games like that, home to Forest, home to Brentford, away at Palace. There's games like that where if Wolves had got a result, or they could have given themselves a much better chance. But yeah, beat Villa, great start. Go and beat Liverpool. I mean, we said it after the game, so I won't dwell on it too much now. But we said it after the game that, obviously the Andre goal, the way it all happened, it was a real bright moment in a really dark season. And for everyone connected to the football club, it was just nice to have those moments. It was nice for us to have those moments, because I've not had a lot of positive stuff to report on with this football club this season. So yeah, really, really good moment with beating Liverpool, as well as obviously beating Villa following that. But when you do that and you get those wins, what does it do? It has people, it starts a conversation. You see national TV and national radio stations talking about, could Wolves do it? Fans are starting to dream a little bit. Rob Edwards has been asked in press conference. I mean, I asked Rob myself in a press conference about it, because not because I necessarily think they're going to stay up, but because it's become a talking point, and it'd be remiss of me not to speak about it with the head coach of the football club. And it obviously became a bit of a narrative, a bit of a talking point. Now, let's look at it realistically. They've got, as you say, they're 12 points clear, or off rather. Essentially, it's 13 points, because their goal difference is a hell of a lot worse than the clubs around them. Aside from, it's not too much worse than Burnley's, but Burnley, it's not going to matter. Burnley are going to go down. So if Wolves are going to pull off any miracle, it's comparing them to West Ham, Forest, and Spurs remarkably. Or maybe Leeds as well, although I do think
I don't think Leeds are out of the woods. No, Leeds are not home and host, are they, at the moment?
No, they are, but I do think they'll stay up, if I'm honest. But it's not impossible. Obviously, they go down. So let's throw them in the conversation. But anyway, compared to those clubs, the goal difference is a hell of a lot worse. So it's essentially 13 points to get yourselves out of it. You've got, as you say, 8 games to go. The teams around you've all got a game in hand as well, obviously. So they might make it even harder situation if they go and win those games. But essentially, you've got to win 4 of them without the other clubs picking up a single point, just to sort of break even. And then you've got that sort of shootout, if you will, for the last 4 games. Obviously, it's not going to work out exactly like that, but it becomes really difficult. I think you have to win 6 out of 8 minimum
Probably.
to have a chance. And even then, that might not be enough because all the other clubs have got to do is win, 2 or 3 of theirs, and that becomes a mathematical impossibility for you. So yeah, I look, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's realistic. I think it'd be an absolute miracle. It'd be one of the greatest Premier League accomplishments, I think, of all time if they were to do it. I think it would genuinely rival Leicester winning the Premier League potentially if they were to do it. It's at least in the conversation. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's realistic. However, isn't it nice to have something to dream about? Isn't it nice? As Nuno once said, dreaming is for free. Why not have a little bit of a dream, have a little bit of something to look forward to? But what it does mean, by the way, if you're going to have a little bit of this positivity and a bit of this dreaming and a bit of this, good feeling around the place, you can't go and lose to Brentford. You can't go and lose to Brentford on Monday, which is not an easy game. Obviously, we'll talk about that game specifically in more detail in a minute, but it's not an easy game. That you can't go there and lose, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we've got 4 weeks now before our next game. It's away.
I think we're talking about hope now, aren't we? I think if teams above them kind of pick up results over the weekend and Wolves lose at Brentford, then you probably that hope probably evaporates. But I think that's the main thing, isn't it, Keen? I think most Wolves fans are probably sitting in now going, it's still mathematically possible. It's not going to happen. But what it does do is being in this position, and if they do get a result of Brentford before this 4-week break, you're going into the games after that, like the trip to West Ham or like the trip to Leeds and potentially the home game against Spurs, with something to actually play for. I think the realistic goal now, as we said after the Liverpool League game, is finish 19th, don't finish bottom. There's a proposition that they might finish 18th. You don't know if they put a sensational run, but from where they are, I think try and finish 19th. And we talked about Liverpool putting a squeeze on Wolves before. Wolves can put the squeeze on the sides above them and just make this kind of battle for survival a little bit more interesting. And then you never know. Strange things will probably happen in football, but it's unlikely they're going to stay up. But I think it's more for the supporters than anything else. That they're going to be going to these last kind of 8 games with a little bit of hope rather than kind of just going through the motions and it being, their final hurrah before relegation.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Well, you got to in those games that they've got, and they have got a much better fixture list than a lot of the teams around them as well. You've got to go and win at West Ham, haven't you? In April, you've got to go win at home to Spurs as well in April. So, I mean, even going away to Leeds, for example, you probably got to win that as well. They're the next 3 games in April, aren't they? So, yeah, there's lots of things they have to do. But I think you're totally right. What the sort of the purpose of this really is just to have a good end to the season. There's some tangible things you could look at. It's catching Burnley, for example, and you get extra £2 million for finishing 19th rather than 20th. Something as small as that. It's something that's sort of tangible that you can aim for. But more importantly, as I think you've hit the nail on the head, is fans to have something. I think for Rob Edwards to have something going into the back end of the season, he's going to need a little bit of momentum. He's going to need a bit of positivity ahead of what's going to be a massive, massive summer for this football club. So for all those reasons, even if you've got nothing to play for in the sense of you're mathematically relegated or it's very unlikely that you're going to stay up, you've got something to play for in terms of a little bit of pride, a little bit of momentum. And if you are going to be here next season, because some of the players will be, not every single one of them will go. If you are going to be here next season, then you need to have some sort of momentum going into the summer for your own personal form as well as the club form. And then obviously Rob Edwards needs to know he can trust you, and you need to make sure that you have that manager's backing going into a championship campaign. So, and actually just a final point on that, Rob's mentioned a couple of times in press conferences, even for players that are going to go, or with the World Cup coming up, for example, and things like that, you've got to play for yourself as well. Selfishly, you've got to play well if you want to get a move. You've got to play well if you want to get into national team. So there's lots of reasons why the players are going to have to play well. I just really hope we don't see any down tools, because we'll call it out straight away as soon as I think I see it.
I don't think you will now.
I don't think so.
I think maybe if they were kind of, say they were down already mathematically, you might see a few that are kind of checked out. But I think because they've got something to play for, albeit very slender, I think we'll see him make a good fist of it, to be honest.
I really hope so, and I think you're right. I don't think we will see sort of any down tools or any sort of throwing toys at the pram or anything like that, because they are in general a pretty good group, a sort of likable group. Obviously they've lacked quality, hence why Wolves are where they are. But what we can look at and what we can do as a group of players is we can perform for ourselves, for the club, for the fans, to give them something going into the back end of the season. Look, maybe we'll be speaking over these next few weeks while Wolves haven't got any games off the back of a win at Brentford, going into the next 7 or the last 7, thinking, you never know, there's a chance. As long as there's an opportunity and a chance, all we've got to do is just focus on themselves. And I mean, put it this way, and as unlikely, and I don't think it's going to happen, and it's ridiculous, but at least it gives everyone a sort of something to hold on to. If Wolves win all 8 games, they're probably staying up, aren't they? So look at it that way and think, right, if we just go into this game, then the next game, then the next game, and just say, right, all we've got to do is win the game. I know it's easier said than done. You've won 3 games in 30. You're not going to go and win, 8 out of 8. But approach it in that way, and I think even if the result doesn't come, the performance probably will, and that will at least give you something to go into the following week, and obviously what's going to be a massive summer. So, look, do I think Wolves are going to pull off a miracle? No. But is it nice to have a little bit of something to hold on to and talk about? Yeah, why not? You might as well enjoy every moment of it, because Wolves fans have had very little to enjoy, haven't they?
Yeah, there is still a fighting chance. Keno, just before we go on to questions and talking about Brentford and maybe discussing what everyone's going to do in this month-long break, there's a change that's happening in the Championship next season, which is going to have an impact on Wolves if they don't win all 8 games and stay in the Premier League. It's the expansion of the Championship, the playoffs in the Championship, from 4 teams to 6 teams. It'll come into effect from next season. So there'll be 2 extra places for teams able to qualify for the end of season playoffs and the playoff final, widely regarded as what do they call it, the most expensive game in football, or the most lucrative game in football. So it gives obviously chances. It's going to give someone like Wolves, if they go down, more of an opportunity to go up. What do you make of it? I know the Premier League have been against it to an extent, because they think it's going to dilute the quality of the Premier League. If a team who finishes in 8th gets promoted, but I would say from a Wolves perspective, it's potentially a positive. Wolves going down next season, they're going to be red hot favourites to win the title or finish in the top 2. But if they don't and they have a bit of a slide, I think that's where this is a bit of a buffer almost, and it gives you that chance to kind of redeem yourselves at the end of the season if it doesn't go as you would have hoped for the 46 games.
Yeah, you are right. Wolves will definitely be favourites to either win the title or come straight back up, unless Spurs go down with them. I mean, what is going on there, by the way?
Well, I was going to say that before you were talking about 8 wins. I think you can probably put the Spurs home game down as a kind of guaranteed banker of 3 points.
Well,
the way Spurs are playing at the moment.
You could if it was tomorrow, but the problem is they're probably going to sack this guy, aren't they? This Igor Tudor. So I mean, I can't see any way they don't sack him. By the way, I mean, it's been an absolute disaster, hasn't it? I mean, I couldn't believe what I was watching last night. I was like, this is unbelievable entertainment and football. I mean, they are
mistakes
all over
were howling, weren't they? The goalkeeper. I felt sorry for the goalkeeper.
I did as well. I think 22, isn't he? His Champions League debut, I think it was. I mean, he's a young lad. I did feel a bit for him. And I'll tell you what, I mean, not that we're going to go on and talk about Spurs for a long period of time, but if you're a manager, that's not how you manage a 22-year-old goalkeeper who's just made little mistakes. You don't hook him and don't even speak to him. And then that is dreadful, mate. Yeah. I mean, it's all over the shop. I mean, if you're going to hook him, do it like half time or something, and then, have a chat with the lad or do something. But I mean, yeah, I mean, all over the place. So, I mean, that was real good entertainment last night. But yeah, as you say, Wolves should be one of the favourites to come back up. Now, obviously, that's going to, in reality, rely on them getting the summer right. And I'll tell you what, Nathan Shee, Matt Jackson, and the rest of them have got a hell of a job to get this club ready for a championship season, particularly with a World Cup year as well, where things might get delayed in transfers. You're going to have to go early on a few transfers. You're probably going to have to go for a few in June and get them over the line, ready to go for when the window opens, because it's going to be a real big summer for getting it right. And by the way, we obviously we know this with Jeff Shee previously. They got a hell of a lot wrong before. New people in charge now. New people looking at the transfer window. Don't do the same mistakes. You have to get it right. But I think from a club perspective, I think this is across the board. This will be Championship clubs and Premier League clubs for different reasons. From a club perspective, they'll all be on board with this change. I think because the Premier League sort of criticism of it, which you rightly said about diluting the quality of the Premier League. If a team that finishes 8th comes up, for example, the Premier League clubs won't, particularly the lower league Premier League clubs or lower position Premier League clubs, won't care about that because they'll be happy about that because it means a team that's probably more likely to go back down again is coming up and they'll survive another season. And then for the Championship clubs, obviously they were going to vote this in because it gives them another chance to go up, another opportunity to go up. So for those reasons, I'm not surprised that the clubs have gone for it. Let's be honest, what does it boil down to from a sort of governing body point of view? Exactly that. It boils down to for people who are only listening. Johnny was making the money sign with his fingers. Spot on. It's all down to money. That's all it's about. It's all. It's an
extra game. It's an extra playoff game to put on Sky.
Exactly.
She had a load more money.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. It's all money related. So from governing bodies, it's all money. Fine. I mean, I don't necessarily like it, but I understand it. From the club perspective, I would be shocked if they didn't vote it in because they'd be silly not to. It's like, right, well, I'm going to get myself 2 extra tickets in the lottery, or should I just not take them? So, no, you're going to take them, aren't you? Of course you are. So that makes sense. And then what do I think about it? And I'll be honest, I wrestle with this a little bit. From a Wolves perspective, I'm pleased because, as you rightly say, gives Wolves an extra opportunity to come back up. So it's going to be really important to this football club. Personally, I kind of liked the playoffs as they were. I didn't think you necessarily needed to make the change.
Yeah, it didn't need to change, is it? And I think a lot of people are saying, it is another sign of modern football, isn't it? I can see why clubs have done it, and I think all clubs will see positive aspects in it. But the supporter from the sidelines and on social media, have kind of said it's just a sign of the modern game, and that's what we could chat for like half an hour on this. It just all boils down to money at the end of the day, I think. And
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the way it's going to be set up, although I think they might be releasing some more information about it at some point, is that it will be single game eliminator games for 8th, 7th, 6th, and 5th.
I think so, yeah. And then the winners of those play 3rd and 4th,
but those are still double 2 legs, aren't they? Those semi-finals, like they happened previously.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's the exact same system, just with those extra 2 eliminated games at the beginning of it. I think I would have preferred it if those, which I think is how they do it in the National League, I think, but I might be wrong. I would prefer it, I think, if those semi-finals was single leg as well. So rather than single leg, then double leg, then final, I'd rather be single, then final, which is essentially all single legs. Because it's sort of, you've already played 46 games anyway, sort of reduces a bit of the workload. And then also there's that little bit of criticism for teams that finish 3rd and 4th. They're going to have a bit of an extra break. So it depends which way you look at it. They've got a bit more of an extra break after the season, so they'll be fresher, or they're not quite going to be on it because the other teams have played more recently and are more up to speed. So whichever way you look at it, there's going to be someone unhappy with something. So I'm not quite sure they've got it right, if I'm honest. I understand the changes, I understand what had been voted in, but I'm not 100% sure that they've got it right. And I really think it's going to be in practice. I think we'll know this time next year, really, won't we? When or a little bit further in going into May next year, when you see if it actually has had any real bearing on the season. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting thing. And obviously, Wolves fans need to be aware of it because it's most likely going to impact this football club next season.
Yeah, certainly is a controversial one, and we'll see how it plays out. Right, time for a shout out for our sponsor. As always, the E&S Wolves podcast is proudly sponsored by University of Wolverhampton at the Halls. Now, let's have a bit of a run through some of the tickets they've got on sale and some of the last chance to buys ahead of the weekend. Just announced is Alice Cooper Devil on My Shoulder book tour, which is coming to Wolverhampton on the 20th of October. The Devil on My Shoulder is the definitive memoir of one of the most iconic music artists of our generation. Every ticket purchase will include a book that can be collected on the night of the event. Those tickets go on sale on Friday at 10 a.m. On sale now, Kane Brown, Crowdwork King. He's bringing his tour to the area on the 27th of September. Coming on the back of his sold out Don't Listen to Me tour, he is bringing his brand new show. It is described as 1 hour of purely unscripted, unplanned comedy, all based around audience participation. So if that tickles your fancy, those tickets are on sale now. And the last chance to buy, taking place in the coming days on the 14th of March, is the Northern Soul Orchestra. They are in town later this week. And on the same evening, the 14th of March, little bit of you this, Keno, the Clone Roses, Oasis, and the Smiths Limited, plus DJ Dave's Sweetmore. I can really imagine you bopping around Wolverhampton, listening to those keynotes right up your street.
100%, mate.
Right up your street. The Clones are widely regarded as one of the UK's premium tribute bands, as are the other acts taking place on the evening. Those tickets are on sale now, so if you want to get your hands on them, head over to the University of Wolverhampton at the Hall's website to find out more. Right, let's get some questions in, Keno. We've got some belters this week in amongst all the ones that have come in. And the first one comes from Andrew Bagley, who said, it didn't exactly go well for Rob Edwards rebuilding Luton when they were relegated from the Premier League. And I can't imagine that they lost many players. What makes you think that Edwards is capable of rebuilding Wolves for a promotion push where half of the matchday squad could be sold?
It's a real fair question. I think
it is a question.
I think if you don't ask those kind of questions, you're probably doing yourself a bit of a disservice. You have to look at his record. And you're right. Look, he brought Luton down, and then left the club. Was it, I think, the January or the February of that season, the following season, and obviously they were then relegated the back end of that campaign. So obviously he played a massive part in them being relegated down to League One. Of course he did. So you have to take that into account. I think it's also fair as well to look at the other way. And he brought Luton up originally, which I think is an important point. He was going in the right direction with bringing Middlesbrough up. I know it was only, 10, 12 games, whatever it was. So you can't necessarily give him the credit for getting them up, but he certainly laid the foundations there and was going in the right direction with them. They were in the top couple of clubs in the Championship when he left for Wolves, and they have gone on to do really well under their new manager Borough, and are going to go up by the looks of it, having played some really good football actually. So I know that there's a lot of their fans that are suggesting that they were pleased about the change after originally not being pleased about him leaving. But hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it? As you say. But he obviously was doing a good job there and was in a good place, and was also sort of almost plucked out of obscurity, really, because leaving Luton, I think he was fairly fortunate probably to get the Borough job, if we're being honest. And obviously he ended up getting Wolves. So I do think you have to look at the record, and I do think you have to question it and think, right, he's got a big job here to get this right. But you also, without actually having the opportunity to do it yet, I don't think we can necessarily suggest that he can't. He's not capable of doing it. So
my comparison I would make is Wolves are going to be, Middlesbrough may be a Premier League club next season, so they might not be in the same division, but I would say Wolves and Middlesbrough at the moment are probably closer to what Wolves will be in the Championship next season than maybe what Luton were, in terms of probably what they're willing to spend, what they're going to spend. Middlesbrough, Steve Gibson at Middlesbrough does pump money and he does spend, and they have probably got one of the bigger budgets in the league. Yeah. And Wolves are going to be in that ballpark. So for me, it's easy to say now. The proof will be in the pudding, wouldn't it? Hopefully Wolves aren't going to do Luton, and they're going to do more of a Middlesbrough under Edwards. But I would say that's probably a closer comparison for me in terms of club size, finances, what they're going to spend, what their standing is going to be in the Championship. But yeah, it probably remains to be seen, doesn't it? But I think it's a valid question given the fact that obviously they came down, and then he wasn't at the helm when they did go down, but he was kind of the architect of some of it.
Yeah, he played a massive role in it, didn't he? Yeah, no, I think it's a real valid question, and as I've said all along, I mean, similar with Nathan Sheehan and Matt Jackson, they've not had the opportunity yet to actually go and sort of fulfill what they want to do and make it a real good summer with bringing all the right players in. Let's give them that opportunity to do it, and if they massively mess it up, and if Rob Edwards is involved in massively messing it up, we'll be the first people to call it out, because it's such an integral summer, such a massive summer, and they have to get it right.
Yeah, they certainly do. Next one is coming from Ork and Beans 14, who said, is Tommy Doyle a player that could stay for next season and get actual minutes? I believe he can be a huge help in bringing us back up if we go down.
Yeah, there's a real high likelihood he'll be coming back to the club in the summer. It obviously depends on Birmingham going up, which I think is unlikely. And I don't think it's likely that he'll stay there without them going up. So the odds are certainly in the favour of him coming back to Wolves in the summer. And then there's a decision to make, isn't there? It's whether Rob Edwards fancies him for the squad. It's whether Tommy Doyle is willing to stick around and play. There's lots of things that have to go into it. Whether any clubs are interested and make offers, there's lots of things that go into it. For my money, Tommy Doyle should be part of the squad next season, I think. I think he's a player that, not necessarily saying that he's your starter every week, but I think he can be. I think he's a player that he's come in and out for Birmingham this season. He was part of a Sheffield United squad that went up and played very regularly for them, was very good. And I think if he gets himself into a bit of form, he can be someone that can play for you every week. But I think you need to have some good competition in there, which means he doesn't necessarily play every week, which makes him, for me, a really effective and good squad player. Adds a little bit of something different. Now, I know he's got his shortcomings as well, but he's very, very good technically, very good on the ball, good from set pieces. I think there's lots of reasons why he knows the Championship. He's been there, he's done it, and played at a really good level in the Championship consistently. So for me, I think he's only going to be a positive addition for your squad. But you've got to get the players right around him as well. So let's see if all those things fall into place and Wolves do keep him around.
Cool Hand Aid has got in touch and said, have we ever won a game with Totti Gomez as captain? If, as suspected, it's a no, it has to be a priority to get a proper skipper next season, unless, for me, Krejci somehow stays at the club.
I thought it was a really interesting question, actually. So I went back and looked at the Wolves' wins this season, 7 wins, including Cup and League, obviously. In those 7, so Totti, not in the squad for the West Ham Cup win, was a late sub in the Everton Cup win, not in the squad for the West Ham League win, not in the squad for the Shrewsbury Cup win, not in the squad for the Grimsby Cup win. Obviously, he had injury issues around this time. He played 90 minutes against Villa in that league win recently, but he wasn't captain. Sarr was captain. And he was an unused sub for the Liverpool win recently as well. So the answer is no. He's been club captain this season, technically, and hasn't captained in a win. Has played in a win, came off the bench in one win, but hasn't captained the team in a win. Look, it's not down to Totti, in my opinion, the reason why Wolves are have not won many games this season. However, as you rightly say with that question, the captaincy is a massive problem. It was a massive problem in the summer. I banged on about it for ages.
We talked about it for so many podcasts.
So yeah, we've spoken about it. I spoke about it loads with Nathan previously. We did loads of stuff on it. I can't believe we banged on about it and they didn't fix the problem. It was a clear, no obvious captain and they needed to fix it. And that's something they have to do this summer. They have to fix that. I think they have to fix it in the squad in general, but also with whoever the new captain's going to be, because I think there has to be a new captain. Even if Totti stays at the club, I think there has to be a new captain. And I do like Totti, to be honest, but I think there has to be someone that takes over. And I do think Krejci has got the potential to be someone that does that. And by the way, Krejci might stick around. I mean, you spent £6 million loan fee on him. You're spending £20 million this summer for him. So it'll be 26 total you paid for him. You've only had him for one season. So he's going to have a high book value financially for the football club. So if Wolves are going to let him go, they either have to let him go on loan with a view of bringing him back or selling him in the future, because obviously he's got on long contract, or you have to sell him for close to what you got him to, if not more. So you're not taking a big loss on your books when you sell him. And I'll be honest, Wolves massively overpaid for Ladislav Krejci. They paid double his market value when they bought him in the summer. And actually, I think he's done fairly well. I think he's a decent player, and I thought he was fantastic in the I forget which Liverpool game it was now. It was my mind's blurred into one. But whichever one it was that he played, he was fantastic. Well, he played both, didn't they? But maybe the first one. Anyway, he was superb. I thought. I think it was the win, the league win. Although could have done better for the goal. But anyway, I thought he was fantastic in that game. Overall, had been very good. But I don't think Wolves are getting that money back from him, in my opinion. I
think he tears up the Championship as well if he stays around.
I agree. I think he's probably one of the best ball playing centre halves in the Championship if he sticks around, if not the best. So Wolves, if they can keep him, I said this on the podcast last time. He is one of a few players, and we can do this on a pod in a few weeks when there's no games as well. We can talk a bit more in detail about it. But he's one of a few players. You go in, you get around him, you do it now. You talk to him now and say, "Look, give us a year. Give us a year. We're going to throw everything at it. We're going to try and get back up. Just give us a year. If we can't, if we don't go up, we'll let you go, and we'll give you these bonuses and incentives for getting promoted, and we'll do all this for you. But give us a year, and we'll get. And if they can do that with him and a few others, they can give themselves a really good base for this squad."
Yeah. A couple more questions. Do like this one. Vicky Lawton said, "How many Buenos and Gomez's will be in the Wolves first team squad next season?"
Good question. Good question. Let's look at the Buenos very quickly. Hugo Bueno would be the best left back or left wing back in the Championship if he stayed, in my opinion. I think he's really done well actually in the last few months. They've got really consistent, really good player. I'm a big fan of Hugo Bueno. And actually, to be honest, David Moller-Wolf's not done that bad really recently, but Bueno just is keeping him out of the team. So I would be surprised if Wolves kept him. I think there's a market for Hugo Bueno out there. I wouldn't say surprised. That might be a bit dramatic, but I do think there'll be teams in for him, both home and abroad. I think he can get a move. Santi Bueno, I do think there'll be a market for him in Spain or somewhere like that. Again, whether a club is going to pay enough to take him, his book value won't be very high at Wolves because he's been here a few years now. So Wolves could sell him realistically if they wanted to. But he's another one for me that if you go into the list with Krejci, if you can keep him for next season, I think it would be a really good base for next season for that defence. Then the Gomez is João Gomez. I can't see any world in which he's at Wolves. I think he goes. Angel Gomez, we've done this a bit on the podcast already previously, and it shouldn't be new information. I'd be surprised if he signs. I think he's most likely going to go if Wolves go to the Championship. Saying that, if he wants to go and get another Premier League club or another big club, he's probably got to do a little bit better than he has done since he arrived. He's not been particularly bad, but he's definitely been underwhelming. Say again, sorry, mate.
He's been a bit hit and miss, isn't he, so far?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Stuff, some not so good.
Yeah, I think underwhelming is the way I'd phrase it. Totti Gomez, there was a market for Totti Gomez about 18 months ago when he was doing fairly well in the Wolves team, and there were clubs that were in for him. 18 months, 2 years ago, there were clubs that were in for him, and Wolves were asking for about 20 million for him at the time, and then never got close to going, as far as I'm aware. I don't think you get anywhere near that now. I think you get a lot less. I think he'd be a really good option for the Championship, but I'm not sure whether there's a desire there or not. So I'll be really interested to see what happens to him. He's one that I really struggle to call. And then finally, Rodrigo Gomez. Again, I'm not going to give too much detail because we can do this on another pod. For me, one of the ones you build the squad around. If you can keep him, I think you have to try and keep him, and you have to really, another one, get in there and say, give us a year. And if Rob plays a back four, which I'm guessing he probably will do next season, Rodrigo has to be one of the attackers, not a fullback. He's got to be a forward. And I think he does really well next season in the Championship if you keep him. However, there are clubs already in the Premier League and elsewhere that are starting to have a little bit of a look at him and start to have a few conversations with a few representatives, if you will. So let's see how it goes.
Final question is a very short one, which we've probably answered already, but Wolves of Dalal Street have said, can they? ? They could.
Can they?
They could.
They could. I mean, as I say, I won't dwell on what I previously said. It would be unbelievable if they did. It would be
the greatest escape of all time. Like
I think it'd have to be.
Yeah, it would be. There's no doubt about it. Someone asked me a question yesterday, actually. A guy who it's quite a fun fact, really. It's kind of a mate or a friend of a friend. He is Rob Edwards' cousin. So we were talking about Wolves yesterday.
Oh, nice.
And he was saying, what would be a bigger achievement from here? Would it be Wolves staying up? Is that bigger than Leicester winning the Premier League? And I didn't think it was, but it's probably not far behind. If it's in the conversation, isn't it? It's certainly in the ballpark, isn't it?
It's got to be in the conversation. So, yeah, it would be tremendous. It'd be amazing. But as I said previously, just take it game by game and try and have a good end to the season and just attack them with nothing to lose. And I think if you do that, if something special happens, amazing. If what we expect to happens and you go down, at least hopefully you'll go down with a little bit of pride and a bit of momentum. That's, I think, the only way you go about it.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. Wolves fans, thank you very much for your questions. Almost out of time on the podcast. It's going to be the last one for a couple of weeks. Keno, as we heard at the top of the podcast, is off on his holidays next week. So we've got no poddy, but we'll be back for the following 2 weeks where not a lot is happening, but we'll find stuff to talk about considering there's no games. But there's one game before this break. It's Brentford away on Monday evening. Another big test, Keno. It would be a victory down in London on Monday evening would kind of be another hurdle that Wolves are overcoming. But it's not going to be easy because Brentford have been the surprise package, haven't they, of the season? They've looked very good, and I would say Wolves are probably going to have to produce a kind of Liverpool or a Villa style performance to win down there, I think, on Monday.
Yeah, as you say, I unfortunately won't be at the game. The press conference for that game is actually Thursday. It's tomorrow, as of recording this, because every time there's a Monday game, they do a Thursday press rather than a Friday press because the players have the Friday off. It's just the way that their sort of schedule works, because then they do more stuff over the weekend. So they always have a Friday off before Monday game. So yeah, we've got a press conference tomorrow. So I will be at that. I'm working this week, but I am off flying to France on Saturday, away for a week. Luckily, the Arsenal game got moved, which means I didn't have to miss 2 games, which would have been annoying. I didn't book the flights, by the way. It was a friend of mine that organised this holiday that she always books Saturday to Saturday, and I mentioned before, I was like, could we do different dates? Because I don't want to miss 2 games.
I think you booked it when Wolves were on 2 points for ages, mate.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't blame me, would you?
And...
You couldn't blame me at all. So luckily, I'm only missing the one game, but I am missing the Brentford game. Won't be there. Our chief sports writer at the Express and Star, Matt Mayer, is going to be at that game, covering that. So I'll try and retweet a few things and stuff like that. But yeah, unfortunately, won't be there. But we will have also for the press conference tomorrow as well. But and then, as you say, no poddy next week, but be back the week after, and then hopefully talking about a Brentford. Oh, well, Wolves. I was about to say Brentford win. A Wolves win over Brentford is what I meant. You're right. You are right about Brentford. I'll be honest. I said this at the beginning of the season that I thought they would struggle this year. So surprise package is the right way to describe them, because they've been a hell of a lot better than I gave them credit for. And fair play to them, because they've been pretty impressive actually. And Keith Andrews, I think, has done a really good job there, and it comes across really well, doesn't he? So yeah, they've done well. They've done a lot better than I expected, and I think. When you look at, they're good from set pieces. They're physical. They've got a bit of pace on going forward as well. They've got a little bit of everything. Defensively, they're fairly solid. Obviously, a couple of players that Wolves know from years gone by, and it becomes a tough place to go. It's a sort of a bit of an odd stadium, and it's a little bit of maybe an odd atmosphere at times, and you're not really quite sure what to make of it. But I think the way that they've sort of gone about their season is going to make it a real sort of interesting and tough place, almost like when they first came up, and it was like obviously under Thomas Frank at the time, and right, this Brentford Stadium and this whole sort of, I think they had Arsenal, didn't they, in that first game of the season? They ended up getting a result, didn't they? And it's like this sort of this place they've been able to create a bit of an atmosphere and create a bit of a sort of difficult place to go. I think that's what Wolves are going to encounter when they go there, because I know they just lost in the FA Cup, but aside from that, they're in a pretty good way at the moment, Brentford. And I think Wolves have to sort of attack it with, and it'd be interesting to exactly how he plays, whether he goes to that sort of the midfield, sort of packing that out again, or goes with the 2 strikers. I would imagine he goes midfield and goes just Armstrong up top on his own. I think if he does that, Wolves have got to be really good in the transition. They've got to have Bellegarde and Mane really, really good in the transition and getting sort of threading those passes and getting Wolves into those pockets of space. Once they do that, and obviously Andre will be back in and playing, once they do that, they'll create chances. And I think if they create chances here in this game and just give Brentford something to worry about, I think they can get a result. So yeah, it's going to be a tough game. But as I said earlier in this podcast, if you want to give yourself an opportunity to do anything, whether it's a miracle or just a bit of momentum, I don't think you can go and lose this game, particularly with almost 4 weeks between this game and the next game, going away to West Ham. So you don't want to go into that massive break with a loss. I think you can't afford to lose this game if you want to give yourself a little bit of a lift and a little bit of a setup for the back end of the season. But I do think Wolves will get something, to be honest. I'm going to go Desmond. 2-2, entertaining game.
There's been a few 2-2 shouts this season, hasn't there?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've got one. I don't think I've got one right this year. I got something else right earlier in the season, but I don't think I've got a Desmond right. So I'm hoping that my time's finally come. There's going to be a Desmond. But yeah, I think that is that almost sort of suits what the kind of game we're going to see. I think it'll be a pretty decent watch, I hope. Not that I'm going to necessarily be able to have a chance to watch it. I'll probably be at Apres while I'm skiing, so I'll have to keep up to date online. But yeah, I think it'd be a decent watch, and I think Wolves will come away with something. If they do that, even if it doesn't mean staying up, at least it's something to carry forward, isn't it, to the next few games?
Yeah, it certainly keeps the ball rolling, and the Wolves fans can continue asking the question, what if, ahead of the final few games of the campaign. Keno, great to see you as always. Stay safe on the ski slopes. Don't drink too much or
I can't promise
break any bones. You can't promise either of those, but we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Wolves fans, thank you very much for getting in touch. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back, as we said, in a couple of weeks' time as we discuss what could be a miracle great escape for Wolves. Until next time, from me and from Keno, goodbye.
Wolverhampton Wanderers, hopefully this time they can do the business.